3D action platformers are a favorite of mine, and I just got done playing one in A Knight's Quest on the PlayStation 4. But will this one end up filling your nights with gaming goodness, or is it a quest that'll never be complete? A Knight's Quest is a 3D action-adventure game that does have some similarities and will be compared to the likes of Legend of Zelda, but it's much more about the platforming than something like a Zelda game, and reminded me more so of 3D action-adventure titles of the PlayStation 2 era. For example, Jak and Daxter, the original one, as well as a personal favorite, Haven, Call of the King. Like in all my reviews, I won't spoil too much about the plot, but in the game you're taking the role of Rusty. Rusty ends up unleashing an evil on the world and now has to set off on a quest in order to find the hero to fix the problem. Rusty ends up traveling along to many different locations spread out, and the actual world here is a pretty large one. I was actually impressed with some of the areas and just how big they ended up being, but nothing ended up truly standing out in the world. It's your typical themes: forest, desert, ice areas, and the like. All of the locations and enemies looking fine, but there was something about the human models, like their eyes and mouths, that just didn't seem quite right. Along your main quest, there's a lot of side quests to complete in areas if you want to, and there's treasure chests to seek out, though it seems kind of random, and most of the time what you end up getting isn't all that useful. So a lot of times I just didn't really seek out many of the game's extra treasure chests. You do need money in the game. You'll find it scattered throughout, as well as other items that you'll need for things like trading and such. For example, giving a bit of gold and meteorite to the blacksmith in order to upgrade your weapon. There's a nice indicator at the top to kind of tell you where you're going, but the game really doesn't handhold you. A lot of areas are quite big, and you'll have to search around a lot. Solving some of the dungeon puzzles, especially some of the later ones, can be a bit challenging, and honestly I got frustrated a little bit, but eventually figuring out and was able to continue on. Rusty ends up getting elemental spells throughout the game. A lot of these you'll have to use in order to solve various puzzles, like hitting switches from afar and the like throughout the game. Combat isn't the game's strong suit. Unfortunately, mostly is just mashing the attack button a lot. Sometimes you'll have to use an elemental move first to weaken an enemy. Sometimes you'll have to home in and do what they call a parry. Basically, when an arrow is fired at you or projectiles coming towards you, hitting the circle button at the right time will send it flying back at them in order to take them out. When attacking enemies, there's no impact to your actual sword hits, so a lot of times it doesn't really feel all that satisfying to slay the various enemies, but that's different when you're facing off against the bosses. There you get to use all your various elements and skills, locking on, having to dodge, and the like, and at least the bosses end up being a big highlight for the game. Where the game ends up shining a bit is in the platforming. It's not perfect, the character is a bit floaty, I'm sure for some people's taste, but once again reminding me of those PS2 action-adventure games. Maximo coming to mind, and a game I played earlier this year called Effie. One of the cool parts about the platforming is you're not only able to jump, but wall run, and you'll get a rail ride as well, similar to the likes of Sonic Adventure or Ratchet & Clank, that allows you to get through areas. The length in the Knight's Quest is quite nice, but unfortunately the game starts to suffer. Not only do areas get quite big, puzzles become more frustrating, but also the combat starts to drag a lot. It doesn't really end up changing that much, and the frustrating shields on some enemies just make battles end up being a lot longer than they need to, and the whole thing feels like it comes to a crawl at points. From the technical side of things, I did run into some issues as far as slowdown, and the game did crash on me on a couple of occasions. A Knight's Quest is available now on the PlayStation 4 for $24.99. It does feature a Platinum Trophy. The game is also available on the Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Overall, I really wanted to love A Knight's Quest, and I did for a bit, but unfortunately the flaws start to shine through as you progress through the game. I think if you have that nostalgia for those old PS2 era action-adventure games, you may end up getting a bit more out of this than those that don't. But I still, unfortunately, didn't end up loving this one. With everything said, I'm going to be giving A Knight's Quest on the PS4 a 6 out of 10. That's going to wrap up this review, though. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.